obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. I also offer my humble obeisances unto my dear godbrother, His Holiness Bhakti Maharaj, who is my closest friend in Krishna consciousness. So you've asked me to speak a little bit about my pastimes or activities with His Holiness Bhakti Maharaj. So first, I'd like to read something I wrote, posted on the internet to the GBC conference and also on my Facebook page, so you'll get an idea somewhat of my relationship with him. So today, this was written on the day of his passing from this world. Today is a day of intense mourning, the day that Bhakti Maharaj has left this mortal world and gone to serve His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada's pastimes. For a pure devotee such as Bhakti Charu Maharaj, there is no lamentation as he is continuing his service in another location. However, for those of us who will be bereft of his association, it's hard to imagine continuing our lives without him. Maharaj was my dearest friend. Once a devotee inquired from me as to who was my closest friend in this world, and I immediately replied, Bhakti Charu Swami. When Bhakti Charu Swami heard my reply from that devotee, tears came to his eyes. And my personal will and healthcare power of attorney, I have Maharaj listed as the person who would legally be in charge of deciding about my health care if I happen to be incapacitated, as well as the person who would be the executor of my will. Maharaj is one of Srila Prabhupada's eternal associates. There are many proofs of this. Almost immediately upon personally meeting Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada gave him both initiations, and then 3 months later gave him sannyas and posted him as his personal secretary for the India mission. Prabhupada recognized Bhakti Charu Maharaj upon that first meeting. Then during the final days of Srila Prabhupada's pastimes, Bhakti Charu Maharaj and Tamal Krishna Maharaj were the ones who Srila Prabhupada trusted most to care for him. Aside from His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Charu Maharaj is the most cultured person I have ever encountered. By his example and precepts, one can learn the finer points of Vaishnava etiquette. When one is with Maharaj, one experiences the same care that one would get from a loving mother or father. Whenever I was with Maharaj, I felt like a bull in a china shop in comparison. That means, just to translate it, for those of you who don't know that particular expression, it means if someone is so refined and someone else like myself is not at all refined, I feel like, anyway, that's the comparison. It is amazing that Maharaj tolerated me as a friend with all my rough edges. That is an attestation to his unlimited compassion. Above all is Bhakti Charu Maharaj's dedication to the mission of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Continually, he stressed the importance of being loyal to Prabhupada and Prabhupada's society. He was always willing to forgo his own plans in order to serve Srila Prabhupada's society in accordance with the direction of the GBC. This was clearly shown by his requesting his godbrothers on the GBC to decide on the course of his medical treatment. He is the personification of Srila Prabhupada's wish that all of us lovingly cooperate. I can truly say that he is an ISKCON man. This is the same as saying he is a Prabhupada man. By Prabhupada's grace, I had Maharaj's association, and I'm sure that by Prabhupada's grace, I will have it once again, as we are eternal brothers. Our physical separation is only temporary. By my being engaged in serving Prabhupada's mission, which is the most dear thing to Maharaj's heart, I can always have his association and the association of all our brothers and sisters. I pray to Srila Prabhupada that somehow or other I will be able to manifest some of the good qualities that Bhakti Charu Maharaj always displayed in order to help others come to Srila Prabhupada's mission. I also pray that I can be of some service to Bhakti Charu Maharaj's disciples. And that's I wrote. So as far as my own personal experience and realization is concerned, first of all, I wanted to comment upon a verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, Janma karma chame divyam o evam yoveti tatvataha jaktva deham purna janma naiti mam eti sorjana. And I think most of you are familiar with that particular verse. In this verse, Krishna says, one who knows the transcendental nature, janma karma chame divyam, of my appearance and activities, will not have to take birth again in this material world. So I'm going to apply that particular verse to the appearance, disappearance, and activities of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj. Many people may look at a pure devotee like Bhakti Charu Maharaj or Srila Prabhupada or other pure devotees and think that, oh yes, they have appeared because of what? Karma, or they've appeared because of the situation in the world, or they've disappeared because of, like Prabhupada, with old age, or with Bhakti Charu Maharaj with this virus, or with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj with his leukemia, or with Tamal Krishna Maharaj with an automobile accident. But this is simply a nonsense external vision of Krishna's devotees. We know that it is stated in the Shastras that anyone who speculates or thinks or tries to understand the mind and intelligence of a great devotee is making a big mistake. Or anyone who thinks that a pure devotee's activities and bodies, material, is the same as someone who thinks that the deity is made of stone or wood or brass. That person has hellish intelligence, hellish consciousness, because everything about a pure devotee's appearance, disappearance, is actually the plan of Krishna. And so we shouldn't think that Bhakti Charu Maharaj disappeared from this world because of the virus, because he caught the virus. No, it's not that way. In fact, if we go back to a letter that Bhakti Charu Maharaj, or offering, sorry, that Bhakti Charu Maharaj wrote, and I think it was 2012, and just let me make reference to part of it right now. You'll see, this is just one sentence. Those days I used to think I had so many things to do, therefore I needed to stay. He's referring to what happened after Prabhupada left. Now I have done whatever you wanted me to do. Please allow me to go back to you. It's an offering to Prabhupada. You have already called back so many of your dear children. Now please allow me to have this good fortune. So basically, Bhakti Charu Maharaj leaving this world was Krishna reciprocating with the desire of his pure devotee to serve his divine grace, Srila Prabhupada. As was the case with Tamal Krishna Maharaj's leaving this world, as was the case with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj leaving this world. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj in his final days revealed to me and to some others that he had a dream. And in that dream, Tamal Krishna Maharaj came to him and said to him, it's time to leave. Srila Prabhupada wants you. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj stated, what about all my disciples? They're going to feel great pain. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj replied, yes, the same with my disciples, but we have to serve his divine grace, Srila Prabhupada. So basically, that's the situation when the servant of Srila Prabhupada, especially the pure servant Bhakti Charu Maharaj, leaves this world. It is due to his desire to serve Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada calling. And we can also refer to the passing away of great devotees like Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur left this world not because he was old. He left this world because he had the desire not to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's final pastimes. It would have been too painful for him, much too painful for him. And therefore, he left the world with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu holding him, or with him looking at the lotus feet and lotus face of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. My other god brother, Jayananda Prabhu, left this world praying the same way to Srila Prabhupada, although it appeared he had leukemia. He prayed that he would not be able to see Prabhupada's final pastimes. And so this is a common denominator in the lives of many of Krishna's pure devotees. They simply want to go at a certain time, and they go at Krishna's behest. Now we find an interesting story in the life of Srinivasacharya. Srinivasacharya was on his way to Vrindavan, and basically he wanted to see Rupa and Sanatana Goswami and take their association. And he found out right before he came to Vrindavan that they had left the planet. And then he was ready to leave his body. But he had a service to do for Rupa and Sanatana. Of course, there were other Goswamis there too. So he continued his mission. So there's that mood too in the lives of the pure devotee that sometimes they want to leave, but if they have some service for their guru, they're not allowed to leave the planet until they fulfill that particular service to their spiritual master. Another story from the Shastras is that of Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami was with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for a greater period of time than any of the other Goswamis in Vrindavan. Of course, he was in Jagannath Puri with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he witnessed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu leaving this world. So he decided to leave this world too. And so he went to Vrindavan with the intention of jumping off Govardhan Hill and leaving this world in that way. And he was prohibited from doing so, but the other Goswamis prohibited him utilizing a sort of transcendental trick. They said, you have to stay around and tell us about Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. So for the next many years, he recited Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, which the other Goswamis had not witnessed, for several hours a day. And in fact, even Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was there. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was able to hear about these pastimes from Raghunath Das Goswami. And in this way, he was able to give us the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is the greatest literature on the philosophy and pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in other words, the disciple always wants to be with the guru. However, if the guru has some mission for him to accomplish, then the disciple works on that mission in order to be with the guru spiritually. And Prabhupada brings that out in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So getting to the point of Bhakti Charu Maharaj is leaving this world, Prabhupada comments that the disciples of the guru should be ready to leave the world with the guru unless they are ready to dedicate themselves to the mission of the guru. And so that was, of course, our mood when Srila Prabhupada left the planet, and that is the mood of a chaste disciple. Now, while the spiritual master is present, you have the vapu, or form of the spiritual master that you serve, you take darshan of. But when the spiritual master goes, you have the vani, or instructions of the spiritual master. So we should analyze what are the instructions, example, desire of His Divine Grace, Bhakti Charu Maharaj. I think this is really important for the disciples to do at this particular point. Because when we talk about mission, that means what was his vision or his primary goal And then what are the other missions that surround that primary goal? So the disciple can have something to focus on to connect with the guru for the rest of the disciple's life. So with Bhakti Charu Maharaj, or his primary characteristic, what I consider his primary characteristic, which I talked about in the letter that I just read, was his exclusive devotion to Prabhupada and his willingness to do anything that Prabhupada wanted, and that translated into serving Prabhupada's mission, because Prabhupada had many times indicated the non-difference between himself and ISKCON, his mission, up to the point, as I mentioned before, of just taking the advice of the GBC Executive Committee insofar as his health directives were concerned. He put aside his own thoughts, and that in itself is very instructive for us. So in other words, there's a instruction he's giving just by that choice, because many of us, we just like to make our own decisions. But Bhakti Charu Maharaj was seeing Prabhupada speaking through the International Society for Krishna Consciousness and taking that as his direction. So because of his devotion, not just his appreciation, and I made this point in class this morning very clearly, that we oftentimes appreciate someone, but we're not devoted to them. There's quite a bit of difference. For example, in the spiritual world or in the Shanta Ras, people may appreciate God, but they may not be serving. But in the higher rasas, when you get to Dasha, of course, and then Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya, then the intensity of service grows more and more and more. So Bhakti Charu Maharaj's intensity of service, not simply worshiping Prabhupada or appreciating Prabhupada or looking at Prabhupada or wanting to be with Prabhupada, but absolute surrender. As we talk about in the 6 surrendering principles, what is it? Accepting everything favorable, rejecting everything unfavorable in relationship to Krishna consciousness. Bhakti Charu Maharaj showed these 6 qualities in relationship to Prabhupada. What are the 6 qualities? That is accepting everything favorable, rejecting everything unfavorable, understanding that you'll always be maintained, always be protected, being meek and humble, and of course, having no separate interest other than his divine grace, Srila Prabhupada. So I'm applying those in relationship to Bhakti Charu Maharaj's relationship to Prabhupada. And because of that, all these other Vaishnava qualities that we find listed, the 26 Vaishnava qualities, were manifest by Bhakti Charu Maharaj because of his devotion. Without devotion, there's no good qualities. But because of his devotion to Srila Prabhupada, and of course that's eternal because he's Prabhupada's eternal associate. Like it's described in the Gita that Arjuna, when Arjuna appears, when Krishna appears, Arjuna is always with him. When Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to the sun god many eons ago, Arjuna was there. In the same way, when Prabhupada goes somewhere, Bhakti Charu Maharaj is assisting Srila Prabhupada. And of course, connected to Radha and Krishna, Gaurnitai, Panchatattva, and the whole spiritual realm. And so those qualities of the spiritual realm, just like Prabhupada described as when we connect to the powerhouse, or when something is connected to the powerhouse, all the powers, those qualities of the spiritual realm are fully manifest in the personality of Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And I personally saw this many times, and actually I attempted to glorify him while he was on the planet many times, and he used to get a little upset with me. Now we're going to talk about our personal interactions. because I do have a sense of humor, which many people know. And so whenever I would see him, I would say in a light fashion, but also meaning, with great meaning, that now I feel Krishna conscious. You know, he and I would embrace each other, and now I feel Krishna conscious just by your presence. And he would laugh at me and said, "You're always talking like that." And so we generally have this sort of humorous interaction. But in humor, there's many things that can be learned. Sometimes people instruct utilizing chastisement, and sometimes people instruct utilizing humor. So we definitely had a very humorful relationship. And one pastime that was related last night during our memory segment by a devotee, Ratna Radhika, was very interesting. And when he used to live here, because he lived here in North Carolina with us for a long period of time. The reason he came to North Carolina, and I think many of you in India and other places may not even know where North Carolina is. You may think it's another country. But the reason he came to North Carolina was out of his compassion, not just for me, of course, out of his compassion for many of the householders in the movement. And he wanted to establish a business to help the devotees maintain themselves so they wouldn't, and he wanted this business to grow nationwide or even worldwide, so the devotees would not have to associate with non-devotees while they were earning their livings. And so this was like a prasadam business. And so I remember going to the place where he established, it was in a city nearby in Durham, where he established the prasadam factory, and we did a whole puja and blessings and everything with him. And so he came here for that purpose and stayed for several years with me. And during that time, we had many wonderful exchanges. And I remember he was always so warm, inviting me over for prasadam. And actually at that time, he personally cooked pizza and had his devotees, there's two devotees I remember, Gadadhar especially, and another devotee, Srivas, who are now in New Orleans in the United States. And they would actually cook pizza, and we take prasadam and have just like a very wonderful, warm relationship while we were taking prasadam. And sometimes while taking prasadam at the temple, we had some pastimes that were a little unusual. As I said, I do have a sense of humor. So sometimes I would go and take a little prasadam from his plate, to remnants, you know. I said, "Oh, I'm taking your remnants." And he would try to take a little bit from my plate, and I would grab my plate and run away. And he would be running after me to get a little remnants from my plate. It was really an amazing friendship that basically I've never had that sort of interaction with anyone else other than Bhakti Maharaj. Or I would touch his feet. You know, I said, "Oh, let me get the dust from your feet." And he would get really upset and start running after me. And so for about 20 minutes, half an hour, we'd be just running. And the devotees recounted that last night, and they were all laughing to hear about this, and laughing, crying, to hear about this like intense friendship relationship between two brothers. So this is the relationship, this is the close relationship we had with Bhakti Maharaj. And it was amazing. I've never had a relationship with anyone else other than that, like that, you know, anyone else like that, an intimate relationship like that. And we could trust him completely. When I went to Mayapur, he arranged for me to have a nice place to stay. Actually was in his quarters, and he arranged for people to cook for me and take care of me. And he was always very doting. Doting means he was always very interested in my welfare, wanted to help in a completely selfless way. He is completely devoid of any anartha, and no envy, no nothing. I mean, he's always interested in serving the Vaishnavas and serving Srila Prabhupada. When I went to Jain for the opening, he invited me to the opening, and fortunately, I was able to help with the deity installation there. I remember the temple was not quite finished. There were some problems with the flooring of the temple room. And he was actually working on sweeping and maybe even polishing the floor right before the temple was opened. And it was like 1 day or 2 days before the temple opening. And I said to him, you know, let me do it. Let me help you. And he said, no, you're a guest. Guests can't do that. And just he persisted. And he was right there, along with everybody else, with his sleeves rolled up, just doing whatever was required to open the Jain temple, which is very, very dear to his heart. So in this way, we had many different loving relationships with him. And as far as his disciples are concerned, I was asked this question last night by many of his disciples that, what is your advice to his disciples? My advice is try to understand Bhakti Charu Maharaj's main mission, which is devotion to Prabhupada and Prabhupada's mission, and then the other missions connected to that main mission. That means Vaishnava etiquette, you know, being loving with all the Vaishnavas, trying to bring as many people to Krishna consciousness as possible. That's why he came to America at the final days, risking his life in order to carry out Srila Prabhupada's wish to preach worldwide, surrendering and sacrificing and at great risk of life. And so these are different missions he had. Of course, another mission is glorifying Srila Prabhupada with this Abhay Charan series. So that's a very important mission. So all these different missions he had are ways by which the disciples can connect. Each and every disciple can drill down and try to understand how they can personally connect and focus on his mission and devote their lives to his mission. And this is the test that disciples are getting right now. Of course, at first there's great lamentation, but then after that, we should focus on Vani. How can we serve? Like Srila Prabhupada said, that's the only question he asked his guru. How can he serve? So we can ask Bhakti Charu Maharaj, each and every one of you, you can actually ask yourself, like I ask myself when I'm choosing or not choosing to do something, what would Srila Prabhupada say to me in this particular circumstance? What would he want me to do or not do? So you can have Bhakti Charu Maharaj in your heart in the same way that Hanuman, he has Lord Ram and Sita in his heart, and Lakshman too. You can have Bhakti Charu Maharaj in your heart and ask him. You should understand him well enough so you can ask him, what should I do now? And then be focused on that. Ekeha Kurunandana. All right. Thank you. I think I was supposed to speak for half an hour. And I don't know if you're going to take any questions. So, who's in charge? No one? Does anyone have any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Maharaj. If just there is one devotee. His name is Mridul. He has a question. Please give some instruction to the strongly aspiring disciples of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj on what should they do now.
You're talking about aspiring disciples, those who have not taken initiation. Is that your question?
Yes, Maharaj.
What should they do now? Well, same thing. What would Bhakti Charu Maharaj advise them? So in order to understand what Bhakti Charu Maharaj would advise them, then you go to your disciples, other disciples of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, and find out. Bhakti Charu Maharaj, as did Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he advised his disciples to treat all of his godbrothers as he was being treated. So that's one advice. But as far as specific advice, one should go to the senior disciples of Bhakti Maharaj and ask them for advice. It's very important that, if you're going to be taking initiation in the future, that you have someone who reflects the mood of Bhakti Maharaj. And even if you do take initiation in the future from, of course, from someone else, obviously Bhakti Maharaj has passed away, then you can consider Bhakti Maharaj your primary guru, Siksha guru, and whoever you take initiation from will be helping you connect with Bhakti Maharaj. Because Siksha guru, it's mentioned, Siksha guru and Diksha guru are equal and different manifestations of the Lord. But one's primary guru is the one that one connects with most and takes as the primary connection with Krishna. And that can be a Siksha guru who has passed away, who's no longer with us. So for those of you who are connected with Bhakti Maharaj and you wish to maintain that connection, of course you should. He's your guru. But as far as initiation, you have to take initiation from someone who is on this planet. And that person should be the one who enhances or helps you in your relationship with Bhakti Maharaj. That's really important. Really important. Someone who is compatible and connects you with Bhakti Maharaj. So, any other questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So far, we haven't received any other question right now.
Okay.
So Maharaj, if you have some time, then you can share more little bit.
Well, it's just basically it's the same types of interactions. There's loving interactions in Mayapur, of course, during the meetings, Mayapur during the morning program. I mean, it's always just like embracing, loving, never a harsh word. I mean, all I can think of, it was just like a repository of Vaishnava love, manifesting Srila Prabhupada's desire. I mean, all my interactions were just like very loving. And I mean, there's not a lot of like amazing pastimes like walking on the Ganges or something like that. I mean, we went swimming in the Ganges, but we didn't walk on the water. But it's just the Vaishnava qualities. I could go through the 26 Vaishnava qualities. I don't have a list here right now. And I could give a whole class of how he manifested, all the Vaishnava qualities, compassion and sense control and control of anger. And to me, the most important thing is focus on the mission of Srila Prabhupada. And I've been going through, as I do on these days, I go through the fourth canto, the verses in the fourth canto that relate to how a devotee should feel upon the passing of his spiritual master. And I can read a little bit here from this, and I'm sure you've all read that before. How Prabhupada compares that the connection of the spiritual master and disciple is like the connection of the husband and the wife. In other words, the disciple should, I'm not going to read this again, but the disciple should be ready to leave this world when His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, when the Guru leaves the world, unless they're capable of serving the mission of the Guru. And I think that's the most important point I can leave you with, rather than different pastimes, is to serve the mission of His Divine Grace Bhakti Maharaj. And those of you, because I see all the nice devotees in Ujjain there in one of the videos, those of you in Ujjain are very fortunate, and his heart, basically Bhakti Maharaj's heart, has been in Ujjain. I mean, that temple is actually a manifestation of Bhakti True Maharaj. And it should be a holy place for Bhakti True Maharaj's disciples. And you should have some sort of pushpa samadhi there, as well as a samadhi in Vrindavan, and of course the actual samadhi in Sridham Mayapur next to his godbrothers. I only pray that my future I can have some association with Bhakti True Maharaj, and I said in my letter that basically by serving Prabhupada's mission and assisting Bhakti True Maharaj's disciples, I can feel that I'm connected with him. Just like I feel now, even though I'm not with Prabhupada physically, I feel very much connected to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada is giving me this service of basically helping the devotees whose spiritual master has fallen away, and that's happened a number of times already. And I just pray that I can always serve the Vaishnavas and remain a humble servant of devotees like Bhakti True Maharaj and a humble servant of the servants of Bhakti True Maharaj. And that will be the perfection of my life. Okay?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, there is one question.
Okay.
He's asking, Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, we have been hearing that ISKCON is a family and we should have the larger picture, larger family picture, unlike in spiritual world, but at the same time, back of mind, we think that no other guru would be that approachable as Guru Maharaj was when he was present. Guru Maharaj was when he was present. Can you please clarify my understanding?
It's not that we're not going to start comparing one guru with another. I mean, we're all disciples or followers of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, and we're manifesting. I mean, other people. I can't say about myself. I'm trying to be a devotee. I gotta say that. All right, Hare Krishna. But the followers of Srila Prabhupada are manifesting different qualities of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. And so I just don't think it's appropriate to start to compare one guru with another, and you say is as approachable or is singing as well, or gives class as well, or knows as many Sanskrit verses. I think these are just really external points. I think what you really need to deal with as far as approaching spiritual mentors, and we all need spiritual mentors and spiritual friendship. Even apart from the idea of guru, you need spiritual friendship with other devotees. I mean, Krishna's Rupa Goswami states, Dadati Pratigranati Guyam Akyati Prichati, that our movement goes on by the loving exchanges between devotees. Giving prasadam, accepting prasadam, revealing one's mind and confidence. You all know these verses. So that's how our movement goes on. It doesn't go on by comparing devotees. We can be inspired by many people, just like I'm initiated by Prabhupada, and I'm inspired by many different devotees, past and present, many devotees on the planet, and I'm inspired by many devotees who have left the planet. I'm inspired by many of our past acharyas, and each and every one has certain characteristics, but I don't compare, let's say, Bhaktivinoda Thakur with Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And I think that's highly inappropriate to do that. To say, well, one is more approachable than another. I think we can derive inspiration because we're all part of Prabhupada's family. So we're manifesting Prabhupada's mercy and Prabhupada's qualities. And Prabhupada is manifesting qualities that have, because he's connected to the powerhouse, Krishna, and we're connected to the powerhouse. So it's this comparison between different Vaishnavas. It's a very external thing, very, very external. We derive our inspiration from many Vaishnavas, and if we just think, if I just think, I only get inspired by Prabhupada, that's almost like a Kanishta Adhikari attitude. The Prabhupada is the only one who inspires me. No, I'm inspired by many, many devotees. I mean, my connection was with Prabhupada, that's primary. But I have many devotees. I read Bhakti Vinod Thakur's Jaiva Dharma, and I'm very much inspired by that. But there's no comparison. I'm not comparing Prabhupada to Bhakti Vinod Thakur. You know, we derive inspiration from many. So we have to be careful of falling into the material conception. You know, that my guru is 50% compassionate, your guru is only 30%, or that guy is, you know. Because, you know, Charyaman Viganyan Navamanyeta Karyachit Namarcha Budya Suyeta Sarva Deva Mayo Guru. We have to be very, very careful about this material vision. And Bhakti Charu Maharaj will guide each and every one of you to seek spiritual shelter in other Vaishnavas in Prabhupada's movement. I have to stress that. In Srila Prabhupada's movement. So, there's another question from Manu Das that I just read here on the chat window. In the absence of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, will he still answer our prayers and we can still say, yeah, of course. He can appear to you in the dreams. He can appear to you in some other Vaishnava speaking to you. He can appear to you through your mature intelligence. He can appear to you in many different ways, and you will feel his reciprocation. Prabhupada said that Prabhupada was never separated from his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So you'll never be separated from him in actuality. Just like we chant the holy names. Who is separated from Krishna? Hare Krishna. Krishna is present there. Don't think materially. Materially, yes. You know, physically, externally, yes, there appears to be some separation. But with Krishna, and Krishna's pure devotees, there's no separation as long as we are serving. We're always connected. Try to remember that. He will answer. I mean, you experience that. Even when Bhakti Charu Maharaj was present, I'm sure you all experienced when you prayed to him and you looked at his picture, basically, you felt some reciprocation from the picture. I mean, I do with pictures of Prabhupada or the deity, the Murti on the Vyasa-san, or with Krishna, Krishna in his holy names, or Krishna in my heart. I mean, we all feel that reciprocation. We don't want to deny that. Even when the spiritual master is on the planet, we feel, and he's somewhere else, some other country preaching, we feel that reciprocation. So one way you can look at it is that Bhakti Charu Maharaj has gone to another country to preach. That's it. He's continuing the same activity. Narayana Paraksarve Nakutasjana Bibyati Varga Apavarga Narakeshu Abhitulyartha Darshana. That a topmost devotee of Narayana, Narayana Paraksarve, he sees everywhere is the same because he's doing the same thing everywhere. So you can be assured that he will reciprocate. He cares for you, just like he did when he was on the planet, externally, but he is there. Maybe not manifest to your eyes, but he is there with you through your devotion. Hare Krishna, like that. Krishna is there. Be assured. And if you need, for one reason or other, external help, and we all need that, then he will send devotees that you can take shelter of too. You know, many people, everyone needs someone externally that they can relate to and talk to. And don't think that he won't send it. He will send that to you. There's no doubt about it. Okay, so I have to get on to some service right now. I want to thank you all for allowing me to speak to you and see the devotees in Ujjain again. That's a blessing to see the devotees in Ujjain. I really miss, good to see you all. I really miss the deities there. I mean, I was just so blissful during the installation. And Bhakti Charu Maharaj let me bathe Radharani and also Vishaka Devi. I was on the main altar when we were doing the installation. And it was one of the high points of my Krishna conscious life to be there in Ujjain, and I'm sure that I will visit you all in the future sometime. So many nice devotees. It's nice to see everybody. Wow, what a blessing. So anytime I can be of service, just let me know. Okay, I have to go. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, and all of Srila Prabhupada's servants. All glories to His Divine Grace. Bhakti Charu Maharaj ki jai. Gaur Premananda.
Yeah, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much, Maharaj, for giving your auspicious and like time to all of